What's up guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different video than normal. Recently I've been getting a lot of questions from you guys about how to set up a go-kart, what setups I use, and all these other questions that pertain just to setup of a go-kart. There's a few reasons why I can't explain exactly my setup or tell you guys exactly what I'm doing to the go-kart when I'm at these races. One, because obviously I still want to win, so I gotta have like some secrets. And number two is I'm normally with a team or something that, you know, there's still some secrets to each team, and everybody has their ways of getting around tracks and certain setups that work, so you can't go around spreading those secrets that teams have and that have stayed with them for years and years and have been from years of testing that they've done at this track. So with that being said, I've decided that the best way for this to work is for me to basically go through a setup change or an adjustment you can make to the go-kart. For example, axles, stiffer bars, caster, camber, seat position, chassis ride height, Ackerman. I'm going to talk about all these different things and basically explain how they feel to me. I'm not claiming to know the science behind these things or the reasoning why this works. You know, a lot of other guys say they do other things to the go-kart and they make the kart feel a little bit different. So all I'm going to say is, you know, how these adjustments feel to me when I drive and what they do to the go-kart when I put them on the kart. This will probably help you because you'll just have a better idea of what to do and maybe a better direction of where to go with the kart when you're just kind of lost. But just kind of take this with a grain of salt that this is all my opinion, my driving style. I'm not claiming to say that this works every single time this very same way at every single track. I'm just saying that the majority of the time when I do this certain thing to the go-kart, this is the result that I get. So with that being said, let's get into axles. Axles are a very big part of the way the kart is set up. Because obviously there's no suspension on the kart, the axle is basically, you know, what springs the go-kart off the corner. So there are three different axles. Everybody knows that. Most chassis have different names for them. It basically comes down to the soft, the medium, and the hard. There's obviously the super soft and then the super hard. They pretty much accomplish the same thing, but just extra. There's not much of a different characteristic in it than there would be between a soft and a medium axle. So let's start with the medium or neutral axle that most people call it. I've driven on many different go-karts. I've driven on probably 6 different chassis that I've raced major races on. And the majority of the time, I'd say probably 75% of the time, you run the neutral axle. It's just normally the best axle overall. It really helps the go-kart off the corner a lot. It adapts well to changes, it responds well, and it adapts well to different conditions on track. And about 75% of the time, like I said, this is the axle you should be on. And if you ever get lost and you just don't know where to go and you're trying different axles, the best bet is probably just to put the standard axle back in and just run with that, because that's probably your baseline and that's where you're going to end up anyways, unless there's obviously some extreme circumstance. That's normally the axle that you should just go back to, and it's the one that will work the best. Now a step down from there would be the soft axle. The softer axle is a little bit different and it gives the kart a little bit of a different feel. What I say that the soft axle does is on entry into the corner, you normally gain a lot more braking stability. It's a softer axle, so for me, it feels like the chassis digs into the ground and kind of squats a little bit in the braking zone, and it allows you to feel more confident in the brakes and kind of charge the corner harder. As you get into the corner, the axle doesn't lift as high as it would with the N axle, but you definitely have a lot more grip entry to the center of the corner, and you can kind of carry a lot more speed into the center of the corner. The problem with the soft axle is when you get to the center of the corner, you don't have that spring off corner that you do with the N or the medium axle. When you get into the center of the corner, there's a lot of load on the go-kart. You want to have the go-kart spring back once the load is being released, center off the corner. With the softer axle, it tends to absorb that load really well, but it doesn't release it center off the corner. You tend to have this give and take where you gain on the entry in. You don't have that same spring off corner that you do with the other axles. It can tend to lead to bogging or other issues like that. Something that I normally know is like if the kart is bogging off corner because of the chassis, it's probably time to switch the axle because, you know, the kart is a little overstuffed or it's too soft for the conditions that we're in. Now, one step up from the medium axle is the hard axle. This one is a little bit different because you definitely lose braking stability going into the corner. The way I've always pictured it is that the softer the axle, the more the go-kart works. The harder the axle, the more it works the tire. So when you go to a hard axle, you definitely lose that braking stability on the entry of the corner because there's not much digging into the ground. You know, it's a hard axle, so you kind of skate a little bit into the corner. Now when you go from the entry into the center of the corner, it tends to lean over on the sidewall of the tire a lot better, and you get quite a bit more hike out of the axle on the inside rear tire. That definitely helps with rotation, and it helps you get the kart pointed straighter. So sometimes it can end up creating more grip for you, but generally for me, when you go to the harder axle, you end up losing a little bit of rear grip, which obviously can benefit you if the kart is a little overstuck. To me, it definitely makes the kart a little freer entry into the center of the corner. And center off, you lose a little bit of that stability that you had out of the softer axles. But the benefit is you still get that spring off corner that you lost with the softer axles. So there's obviously a little give and take. Each axle, there's benefits and negatives to it. And that's why I say you probably will end up on the neutral axle. From the Burrell to the Tony kart to the AM racing kart that I drove, the PCR, the best axle was normally the standard axle that came in the go-kart because it works at 75% of the conditions that you're in. It just works overall, and you still have good spring off corner without sacrificing that grip that you get entry into the center of the corner. Another setup for axles is a shorter axle versus a longer axle. This isn't necessarily used that much on the OTK side. The standard axle that comes in it is the max width axle that they sell, but other go-karts, like the Burrell for instance, they sell longer axle that you can use, and the standard axle on their go-kart is a little bit shorter than the standard axle on another kart. So they do sell longer axles, so that's obviously a change that some of you guys need to know and can definitely benefit you. So let's go with the short axle first. So with the shorter axle, you tend to lose braking stability. It always feels for me that when I go into the corner with the shorter axle, it's a lot twitchier and it's a lot more responsive. But because it's so responsive, any movement or any chatter I get in the brakes, the kart reacts and it wants to step out. And it's always on edge. And that is pretty much the normal characteristic of this axle, because as you get into the center of the corner, the steering, it'll point really quick and the axle will raise off the ground really, really fast and lift into the center of the corner. The problem is sometimes you can get an overhike where it lifts too fast and it throws the rear around, or it goes up too high and then when the axle wants to set back down, it sets back down too hard and that throws the rear around. These axles normally work really well around tight tracks where you can kind of get the kart pointed quick, or fast like 90-degree corners, you know, a quick point and you're back to the power. Those are where it normally benefits having a shorter axle. When you go to tracks with longer sweeping corners, obviously you don't want a kart that points super quick and is super darty, so you'd probably go to your longer axle or your standard axle. The longer axle is basically the opposite. It gives you more braking stability, you get less hike initially out of the tire from entry to the center of the corner, and you get a little less rotation out of the go-kart. It's gonna be a lot lazier. It's gonna take a lot longer to get this bigger axle around the track. I mean, you gotta picture it. Something that's smaller is gonna be a lot more agile than something that's a lot bigger than that. So this is basically what you come into. If you want a go-kart that is a lot more agile and can change directions a lot quicker, it might be time to cut the axle. If you want a kart that is a little lazier and you feel like your kart is too responsive right now, maybe go to a longer axle. You get that braking stability and you'll get that drive off corner that you need on a lot of fast, long sweeping corners. So there you have it. That's a basic rundown of axles and what they do. This video is going to be shorter because I kind of want to chop these up into different bits that maybe you're at the track and you are like, man, I really want to change this certain thing. You can go to my channel, find which video I talked about that particular setup, watch it really quick, and then you can kind of decide where you're going to go from there. Hopefully this helped you guys. I really appreciate you guys watching and subscribing to the channel. Make sure you subscribe. If you're not subscribed, give the video a like. Make sure, again, to follow me on Instagram and on Facebook. That's where I post all my racing stuff. You can kind of follow along on what events I'm attending and where I'm racing and, you know, what position I'm in and how I'm doing through that weekend. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.